Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves. In immortality. Emily Dickinson. At your funeral at the Missionary Baptist Church in August of 2012, memories just began to flood my mind. 10. Yes, I was 10 years old, a fifth grader at Guyton Elementary Upper School in our very rural town of Guyton, Georgia. You know how they say that people cannot list the first 5 American presidents? You know how they say that people cannot list at least 4 of the 9 Supreme Court justices? But you ask anyone who their most influential and beloved teacher is, and instantly, a swift memory, they can recall this person. For me, this was Miss Lovett. Does Miss Lovett have a first name? Not when you're just 10 years old. Miss Lovett was tall and slender and had long hair. You see, to say that she was black wasn't something I thought of one way or another. To think about that would be like reminding myself every single day that she was female. And in a 10-year-old mind, that's not something I thought about. Now, long hair, I thought about her long hair. I realized that many other teachers at our school that were African American had short hair, but my teacher had long hair, and I loved long hair, for I had such a length that I could sit on it if I was not careful. They say, or I've heard, that there's no such thing as being colorblind. There's a song entitled, I Want to Leave a Legacy by Nicole Nordeman. I want to leave a legacy. How will they remember me? Did I choose to love? Did I point to you enough? Did I make a mark on things? I want to leave an offering, child of mercy and grace, who blessed your name unapologetically, and leave that kind of legacy. A teacher's legacy. To educate as a practice of freedom is a way of teaching that anyone can learn, that the learning process comes easiest to those of us who teach, who also believe that there's an aspect of our vocation that is sacred, who believe that our work is not merely to share information, but to share the intellectual and spiritual growth of our students, to teach in such a manner that respects and cares for the souls of our students. It's essential if we are to provide the necessary conditions here where learning can most deeply and intimately take place. We grew that year in 1974. Me and Lisa and Joanne and Tammy and Nancy and Michelle and Rhonda and Doug and Andy and Shannon, Isaac, Henry, Robert, Jacqueline, and Gigi Delling, and all the rest. John Dewey would have loved you. Unschooling is your legacy, creating an atmosphere for us to grow. You stretched our imaginations and our creativity. You desired to foster an all-around development. What is an all-around development? It cannot be set forth in advance. It defies pre-specifications, and it requires immersion in the flow. We made bread. We made it by hand, and we set it outside to rise. I thought at that time, why don't we just go to the corner store and buy it there? We only had one store in our whole town, but you knew that we would lose the experience in all its manifestations if we did it that way. You taught like a teacher on a mission. You encourage critical thinkers, independent thinkers, to explore knowledge not found in textbooks. When learning about the Underground Railroad, you decided that we would make a quilt. And we brought in fabric squares, me and Lisa and Doug and Andy and Rhonda and Isaac and Henry and Robert and Gigi Deline. We all brought fabric from our homes. And for weeks we connected the squares and we created a quilt as you told us stories about how the design of the quilts was used to point runaway slaves who could not read to freedom. Our imagination soared. That was 40 plus years ago, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. The banking system was not something you practiced. Information in, wrote knowledge out. Why a quilt? Why Harriet Tubman? Why should I learn about American history and slavery? In the banking concept of education, knowledge is a gift bestowed by those who consider themselves knowledgeable upon those whom they consider to know nothing. In Dewey's philosophy in education, children learn naturally through play, through exploring, through hands-on activities. Children learn language when they have no other language to build on by analogy. By the age of 5, they have learned so many complicated dimensions of culture that is needed to socialize effectively. When a baby is crawling and rolling around and exploring their environment, they're engaged in a form of conscious reflection. Miss Lovett, you understood this. You fostered reflective thinking. You encouraged us to reflect on the void, the pain, the joys, the experiences. We gathered together to learn, to apply, and to imagine. In this reflective thinking, we learned that Harriet Tubman was motivated for her love of democracy to seek and to find not only her own freedom, but to make many, many trips to the slave South to gain the liberty of many slaves and to instill in them the idea in their hearts that freedom is possible. Reflective thinking. Well, you know, when I first met Gigi Deline, she said her name was Deline, but my friends call me Gigi. I stood in amazement. I wanted a grand nickname like Gigi. My friend's name was Gigi. And in that very moment, I said, my friends call me Ricey. I know. Now, if I have reflective thinking, I wouldn't have said Ricey. For that whole year and then some, my classmates called me Ricey. We sang songs. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Well, I looked over Jordan, and what did I see? Coming for to carry me home. Oh, Negro spirituals with coded messages. The chariot, the Jordan, I hear the song, I hear the message, I hear the hope, and I hear the struggle. The voices, the sounds, habits, growth, and imagination we find in the continuity of our experiences and find interactions. The spaces are words, myriads of words, every part capable and active and receptive with ups and downs, the air, the soil, the water, the fire. These are words. We ourselves are word with them. Our qualities interact with theirs. Dr. Ming He. Schubert, in Love, Justice, and Education, would say that education is a subject that cannot be discussed in void. Our questions raise other questions. To know what we want in education, we must know what we want in general. We derive our theory of education from our philosophy of life, and there is only one subject matter for education, and that is life in all its manifestations. Palmer, in The Courage to Teach says, if we regard truth as something handed down from authorities on high, the classroom will look like a dictatorship. If we regard truth as a fiction determined by a personal whim, the classroom will look like anarchy. If we regard truth as emerging from a complex process of mutual inquiry, the classroom will look like a resourceful and interdependent community. In the banking system, the capability of banking education to minimize or annul the students' creativity and the creative power serves the interests of the oppressors, who care neither to have the world revealed or to have it transformed. But you, Miss Lovett, wanted to reveal the world to us through an educational format that transformed our thinking and stretched our known to greater heights. Our 5th grade classroom did not look like any other classrooms in our school. Our desks were positioned so that half the room was facing east and the other half was facing west. The chalkboard was not the center. We, your students, were the center. According to Dewey, if education is to release the wonder and the imagination and speculation and the quest for meaning and growth in unknown directions, how can purpose be established in advance? How can any group that does not expect the learner as central to such an endeavor even pretend to know what is good for that learner? I only have one memory of you at the chalkboard. In my mind's eye, and even now I can see you writing and your hair midway down your shoulders. And again, I thought, how beautiful. We were freely positioned throughout the room so that we could see the board better. But I do remember that you were very cautious every time you used the chalkboard, for Shannon had chronic asthma. And the chalk dust would cause an episode. Your students were so important to you. You knew us all. Michelle's mother was in a car accident, and she was paralyzed from the neck down, and her father left. Nancy had a slight hearing loss that affected her speech. Henry sometimes wore the same clothes again and again. Rhonda was a later-in-life child, and her parents were quite old. Tammy's mother was overprotective, and she came to the school often. I was from a large family of 6 children. I liked to sing, and you let me sing every morning to the PBS show program called The Electric Company. I'd billow out that song, we're gonna turn it on, we're gonna bring you the power, we're moving in a new way, brightening up the day, we're the Electric Company. Well, Bell Hooks says, teaching is a performative art. And it is that aspect of teaching in our work that offers a space for change and invention and spontaneous shifts that can serve as the catalyst to drawing out unique elements in each classroom. To embrace the performative aspect of teaching, we are compelled to engage the audiences, to consider issues of reciprocity, to call every student, everyone to become more and more and more engaged, to become active participants in learning.